Welcome everyone to another episode of the IYB. Today I'm here with Katie Galan, the head chingona of the BBB.
If that's what you want to call it. I don't know.
How you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for showing up. Always a pleasure. Before this meeting, I was like, oh, what kind of questions do I ask? And I remembered you're a communication, your background is in communication, so I don't have anything to worry about.
No, not at all.
I'll just put the spotlight on you.
There you go. I talk for a living, so there you go.
Yeah. How's everything going? How's everything with the BBB going?
Good. Things are doing really well. As far as the education that I'm having to put out there, I'm getting lots of requests to go and present to groups all the time, which is great. Because it's sending out that information, but also that just proves how big of a problem we are having with scams and identity theft, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword.
That's a good topic to jump into. Is that currently the biggest issue that most businesses are facing, or just in general?
So cybersecurity. This goes both for businesses and consumers, right? Because we serve both at BBB. But yeah, cybersecurity is a huge threat for businesses right now. Scams in general, all the way around, whether we're talking businesses or consumers, we're kind of in an unprecedented time right now, and we're seeing numbers that are will blow your mind. And I think a big part of that is just because, obviously AI has been around forever, right? For way longer than just this moment that we're seeing.
We're starting to see it blossom, though.
Right. And so now with the way that it's kind of emerging and being more and more prominent, it's getting harder and harder to tell the difference between something that's a scam and something that's legitimate. Because before, it'd be a lot easier. You could kind of read through an email or a text and you could see like little nuances like misspellings and grammatical errors and things like that. And now that's all basically taken care of for them. So it's getting really difficult. And so we're definitely seeing a lot of issues with that.
What is it that your organization is recommending for some of these businesses? What are some first steps? Is it usually to sign up and then kind of get some guidance because it's always changing too, right? It's not like one piece of advice can just like solve it for you.
So we love our BBB accredited businesses, but you don't have to be BBB accredited to give us a call and have a consultation, which would, if you're in the Coastal Bend area, that would be with me. Yeah. But we give these consultations for free. We are a nonprofit organization, so that's part of what we provide to the public. But there are a few different things. There are some there's like some software that you can purchase. There's some businesses that you can hire who will constantly monitor your employees' emails and things that are coming through. They'll even do like little tests. They'll send like little test emails to see which of the employees end up actually falling for it or clicking on it.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
It's pretty neat. And that, thank goodness that there's something like that people can participate in, because if that's something real, that can tank your entire business. Yeah. And for us at BBB, our bread and butter is the small business, the mom and pop shops, and those are the types of businesses that if they get scammed out of just a couple $1,000s, that could mean a lot for them.
It's something that I think a new small business owner isn't probably thinking about. Yeah. They're just thinking about, how do I hire? How do I make these sales? Yeah. And it's just one of those, once again, those little small things that can really kind of take you under or really give you a problem later on.
Yeah. There's actually, I was at, there's this BBB program it's part of our International Association of BBBs, this program through FINRA, which is a financial literacy program. And I was in this program last year, and so at our graduation, we had somebody from the FBI come and speak to us, which we speak to FBI folks a lot, but they gave us some pretty interesting stories as far as cybersecurity for businesses. And one of them was that there was this small business who had fallen victim to one of the most popular scams that's targeting businesses as far as cybersecurity, which is basically where invoices are sent to billing, and they're so busy because these businesses wear multiple hats, right? So you have an owner that's, as you probably well know, you're an owner, you're an HR person, you do payroll, you do all these things. And they're so busy that they don't have time to check and see is this a legitimate invoice or what's this correspondence? And so they received multiple invoices from this one it was an actual vendor. The name was an actual vendor that they actually used. And the initial thing was we changed our ACH information, transfer the money to the bank. And so here's our new information. Here's some new invoices. And they paid like 4 of them. And it was about $500,000. And the actual vendor calls them weeks later and is like, hey, we haven't gotten payment. And they're like, what do you mean? We've sent all of this money. We sent it to
Jamaica.
And they're like, it wasn't us. So that was not a huge business. That was a small business in that area.
Oh,
and so,
wow.
So those are the types of things that, that can tank that business for sure.
Isn't it wild
it's
how creative they're getting?
Yeah,
I mean, it used to be where you were worried about your grandparents.
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, they're coming after every one of
Well,
y'all.
what's an interesting statistic that we have found is that we just like you said, we normally think of scams targeting our, older adults or our grandparents or parents. But actually the second largest demographic that's targeted is 18 to 24-year-olds. And people are so shocked to hear that. So it's 45 to 54 is number one, and then it's 18 to 24 directly behind that.
I can kind of see that. You're new to the world,
exactly,
and you just don't really, you can't tell what's real or not. But you would assume because they were born with the phone in their hand that they kind of
that's the misconception. And what I tell people is that really is kind of the first generation that's completely grown up with devices, right? They're like 2 years old with a tablet or a phone in their hand or something. So they're very, very comfortable with technology. So that's going to make them a little bit more trusting.
Yeah.
So you couple that with the fact that they, just like you said, simply lack life experience and they're not able to really tell when they're being targeted. And that's kind of how they got the number 2 spot.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I can tell that you seem to be in your element. How, I don't know you that well, but how long have you been in this, like, where you've been driving on communication and you've been taking, because now I don't think I've ever saw anyone from the BBB putting out as much information, actively involved with the community. You're going to classes. I feel like you're always there in the room with something going on, right?
Yeah.
How are you maintaining that speed?
So, my job with BBB, so our kind of mothership hub for us, so every BBB entity it's almost like a franchise in that we're all separate entities, but we all report to the same international organization. So ours is in Austin, right? So we are one of 7 regional offices under our umbrella, which is serving the heart of Texas.
Okay.
So I am the only public-facing employee in the Coastal Bend area. So I'm the only one who speaks. I'm the only one that people see. So, it's just my job. Because if you don't see me, then you don't see BBB. Right?
True. But I do feel like you naturally fall into this role. Have you always been like this as a little kid? You always got in front of the camera?
So that's kind of funny. So my degree is in communications from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So it was a degree in communications with a media emphasis. So my original plan from when I was in high school was that I was going to be a news reporter. That was what I wanted to do. And so I went to Miller High School, and that was when Miller first became the Center for, Science and Technology.
Okay.
Was around that time. And so as part of that technological aspect of what the school had become, which this was back in the late 90s, there was a television station called Buckvision. And I didn't take the class, but there was a guy, a friend of mine, his name is Gabe Yariel, who I still know, who is still a great director. He was in the class, and he just said one day, I was a cheerleader and stuff. And so I guess he thought, well, she's out there doing that, so maybe she'll feel comfortable. So he's like, would you mind coming and like reading our news? So I was like, sure. So I did. And it was, the program was just, we didn't have teleprompters. I had a script. And so I'm reading
Do we still have that footage?
Yeah.
Let's pull it up real quick.
Yeah, right. That would be hilarious. So that was kind of what got me interested in kind of reading and talking in front of people and the camera. So then when I went to college, that was what my goal was. And I did work at I interned at Channel 3 while I was still in school. And then when I graduated, they offered me a position as a producer. So,
oh, wow.
So when you're kind of going into that field, you begin usually as a producer. And then you move that way toward being a reporter. Loved that job. because as a producer, you basically write the entire show. So for my whole 8 hours that I was at work, I was writing. Everything that came out of their mouth is written by a producer. And then, of course, when the show goes live, you are directing the entire, you're kind of like the boss of the crew.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were like basically doing everything.
Yeah. It's really,
and from the start,
it's a cool job. Yeah.
It seems like the other way around.
It does. But there are people who they only produce, right? And very successful producers who are producers for 20, 30 years. And so, but my goal was to go the other way, right? Mm-hmm. So I worked there for, I think 2 or 3 years. I think 2 years I worked there. And then as anybody, if you ever meet anybody in news who's just starting out, they're going to tell you that the pay is awful. So it was, okay, am I going to pay my light bill and my electric bill, or am I going to like follow this kind of dream that I have, right? That was kind of the thing. And so my anchor that worked on my show, she knew somebody who worked at the marketing manager at Stripes, when Stripes was still based here. And she said she's looking for an assistant. And I went and I interviewed and I started working at Stripes. And then I kind of moved up the ladder there. And then I've basically been in this realm for like 20 years.
Yeah. But you kind of just have fallen natural to it. This is what you like. Yeah. When it came to the question of whether you should do this for money or not, you gear towards not being so driven towards money. And you were able to sacrifice and put effort into maybe building yourself in this manner that you wanted to. I think that's important because in life, we are constantly being kind of these temptations, especially financially, because, well, you got to pay the bills, right? And I think it's a big challenge for the new generation that's coming up because as you hear, their struggles are in finding affordable housing, what's going to be their next job, the worries of AI. I like to think that the sacrifice still needs to be there. Maybe you can find or leverage people that can help grow you, right? And kind of back to the premise of this point is like, it's you got to get out there and find the information. And I really commend you, by the way, for constantly putting out the messages through the BBB. It may seem like a small thing, but those little tokens, I go back and I'm like, that's something important to consider. And you forget because you're just so caught up in the things.
Yeah. Awesome. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to segue on a different note. I hear you were involved with returning some kind of chapter back to Corpus Christi.
This was, are you talking about?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Las Comadres?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little
about that?
Well, I have my sources.
Yeah. So it's called Las Comadres de Americas, and it was started by a woman named Nora Comstock, who is, she's out of Austin. And she started this, it truly is an international association at this point. It's been around for a little over 20 years. And it's basically a group of Hispanic women, or it's a group for Hispanic women, or as Nora likes to say, que tiene un corazón latina.
Okay.
So you don't have to be, but you have to kind of, be with our vibe,
Sure.
And so it's just a group of women who get together and we support each other and we find ways to, if there are scholarships that are available, this is kind of a place where let's talk about it. Go tell your kids, because we're trying to, it's kind of, I hesitate to say this, but it's the truth, right? It's a little disproportionate when you look at where money is going, where who's filling certain jobs. It's a little disproportionate. Sure. So we try to share those opportunities and that information with our group and make sure that it's gets to our community as well.
And I think that's where it stems from, is nobody's passing the word.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that's a big part of what the group does. And then we're just there to support each other just as women, as people, because a lot of times women traditionally, are looking after everybody else, right? You're looking after your family or your parents or your husband or kids or whatever. And don't take a lot of time to really do the self-care. And, one of the things that I talk about when I mediate those meetings is I always say, and also, if there's anything you want to brag about, if you got a promotion, if you got, whatever, if there's something going on, with your family. And the first thing that people always talk about is, oh, this happened with my kid, or, oh, this happened with my whoever. It's so hard for them to talk about, I did this, or this happened, I accomplished this. So I try to shift that conversation. And I always tell them, I'm like, I know you're going to want it. Your first instinct is going to be to go to your kids or your husband or, your partner or whatever. But, what about you?
Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's cultural.
Cultural, not to... humility, or not just don't feel comfortable with accepting.
I think
it's kind of like when you tell someone, hey, you're looking good, you've been going to the gym, and they're like, but I don't, this, they start like, they pass it on. It's like, hey, just say thank you. Like, why was that so hard? I don't know. What do you think?
I think number one, it's cultural. I think that, and then number two, it's just women in general. Women are taught to be the caregivers and take care of everybody else. And so that is kind of where our focus naturally lies. And so it's kind of difficult to be like, hey, well, what about me?
Have you started to make that shift?
Well, so I don't have children, but I do have a husband, and I do have, family and stuff that I.
You're a naturally giving person, but, and as you said, I think with a lot of caregivers, they tend to maybe not give themselves enough love. So are you working on that?
Absolutely. I would say so. So
okay.
It's important because, especially too, like in a job that I have where you are constantly out and you have to it's not like I'm behind a computer all day, right? I have to physically be in front of people. And if I'm kind of like run down emotionally or mentally or whatever, that comes through when you're speaking to people, and in your presence, people can feel that. So it's important to take care of
you are your biggest critic.
Yeah.
And I think you don't give yourself enough credit, right? It's it's never good enough.
Yeah.
I see that. What in the world of communication, now that you've been going through this, what would you say is probably one of your biggest lessons, something that's been very surprising that maybe others aren't considering, or maybe something that you're dealing with?
Okay, I'm going to go way back.
Okay.
So when I was younger, like really, really young, I guess I was a little bit shyer maybe. But I was always in sports since I was 6 years old. And my godfather and my dad coached me when I was playing softball. And I was probably I would say I was probably like 10 years old when this happened. And I was talking to my godfather, who was one of my coaches, after one of my softball games. And he's talking to me. He's not like reprimanding me or anything. We're just having a conversation. But he's standing in front of me, and I'm just looking down at the ground, and I'm responding, and I'm looking down at the ground. And he says, why are you looking at the ground? And I was just like, I don't know. He says, look at me. He says, when you're having a conversation with somebody, even if they're a lot older than you, like look at them in the eyes and you speak to them, and you speak to them in the eyes. And that was like a real, and even at a young age, I remember him telling me that's a cultural thing. That's kind of how our culture is we tend to look down when we're, somebody speaking to us or whatever. And that was, even at that age, such a big mind. I mean, obviously, if I still think about it to this day, right?
Yeah.
That it's so important when you're speaking to people to look them in the eye, and when you're having those conversations, when they're looking at you, I mean, when they're speaking to you, you look at them too, and make sure that they are that they know you're engaged with that conversation. And so I think that's a big part of communication is little things like that, little cues of, you and I are having a conversation. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. I know you're interested, vice versa. And it just helps move the conversation along a little bit better. And it makes you, you seem like a very genuine person, and people like to be around that. And especially when you're in a field like this, it's important that people are okay with me and my energy, and that they want to be around that. So
I don't know if what generation you lie, but for me, as a first generation American, growing up and being almost shamed for my background or culture, I think if I'm like thinking of putting myself in those shoes, I think that's kind of where it started for me, at least personally. And it's like this lack of self-worth, and like you're not good enough, and only to find out later that you were plenty, you were more than enough. Isn't that interesting? How
yeah, absolutely. And
you just get put down by the products of your environment, and I would say maybe some people don't grow out of it, maybe some people don't escape, but to keep putting that message out there that you carry enough information, you carry enough knowledge, what you do in this world is good enough. I think is very important that maybe we're not hearing enough today.
Yeah, definitely. And especially kind of in the political climate that we're in now, it's even more important. And yeah, we can't get into that.
But
that's just a whole tangent. But
it's so frustrating to see two people fighting and arguing. It's like, oh my God, like it's not even about you. It's so much bigger. Like you're focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah,
it's so annoying.
So even more so, especially, in this time, it's really important that we do give that message that you are enough and you belong here. And, I had a friend tell me something the other day, and she was saying, so she's pretty well-to-do. She and her husband and her kids go to a pretty well-to-do school. But I guess she feels like compared to the other parents or the other families that they're not quite where they are. And she told me, she says, sometimes I'm kind of embarrassed. Sometimes I feel like that. And I said, you know what? You deserve to be in, whether it's this or work or whatever, you deserve to be in every single room that you're in. And don't ever let anybody make you feel like you shouldn't be there. You deserve to be there just as much as anybody else. And I think that's an important message too for young people and for people in our culture, especially. So that's kind
of. Another segue I wanted to touch on. You're kind of at the end of your Corpus Christi leadership course.
I graduated.
You graduated already. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How was it?
It was good. So class 53, best class ever.
Sure.
And it was a really good experience. There were a couple people, maybe like 2 or 3 people that I knew so it's a class of 30. Usually one dropped, so we were 29, but I knew like 2 people or 3 people when we started. So getting to know everybody else was really cool because there were such diverse backgrounds and different lines of work and stuff. And so that was really cool. And then too, like each session focuses on something different. So one session focused on economic development. One was quality of life in Corpus Christi. One is city and county government. So, even somebody like me who's been here my entire life and who has, been involved in here and there and stuff, there was still so much information that I didn't know. So it was really cool to be able to see like the ins and outs of how certain aspects of our city work and to get that information that we as the general public don't typically get to have. Yeah. And so the program is really designed for people who are either existing or emerging leaders in our city and who who may also have a plan to run for public office at some point, which that is not me. But
you sure?
No, I'm positive. I'm positive. But so the information that we receive it's so interesting and it's so like vast. And again, stuff that we don't as the general public tend to typically get. So it was a really, really cool program.
What do you think was your biggest takeaway from this whole experience?
Well, there were some sessions that I thought were a little bit more interesting than others, or that gave a little bit more information than I would have thought. The economic development one was a really good one because they brought in folks so every session has panels, right? And they bring in people for the panels. That reminds me, you're gonna have to edit this out, but I have to talk to you about something about being on a panel for something.
Okay.
When we're done. So every session has panels, and the economic development one was really interesting. There was somebody that they brought in from, I think it was Gulf Compress was the business, which manufactures and processes cotton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was so interesting to hear like everything about that entire process and how much it affects our economy and how much we drive by that place, down that rural road and don't think twice about it. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is bringing so much revenue to our city, and people don't even blink and know that it's even there.
They just think it's just dirt.
Yeah, it was just
Can't wait till they build another mall there. You don't realize what that line's doing.
Yeah, it was so interesting. So that he was one of the guys on the panel, and I just thought that was really cool to bring in somebody who was a little bit unexpected. Yeah, that we didn't think would happen. And then the city and county government session was also really good, and to kind of hear some of that information. So
I feel like after that class, it's almost like an uplift class. You get lifted, you get to be exposed to your network just becomes much broader. I can tell. Yeah. I can tell that like since the beginning of this class to where you're at now, you're in your greater connections have opened up a lot of doors for you.
Yeah. So it's definitely a great, I tell people it's a really good networking opportunity, even if you've been here your whole life, like I have. There was a woman that I was talking to about it, and her husband is he's a county official. He's a judge, I think.
Okay.
And she was saying, I've kind of thought about it, but, and I said, well, it's really interesting. And I basically told her everything I just told you. And she's like, well, I kind of know all that, and I kind of know everybody. And I'm like, well, we all kind of know everybody. I mean, if we've been here long enough. I said, but it's still a good opportunity. It's still good. There's still, like you said, still doors that can be open, and the, my network is just that much bigger. So it's definitely a good thing, and it's like the second largest leadership program in the state. So
oh wow!
I think second or third. But
I really wasn't too interested at first. I just felt like maybe I didn't really see the benefit in it for me. And I think I've humbled myself enough over the last few years that there's definitely something to gain from this.
Yeah.
So I may throw my hat in there and
you definitely need to.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to talk about, because of your background and just on a personal note for myself, we're with Hemispheres Cafe, and not to say that this is what this is about by any means. I don't try to plug or push the product, even though we got Hemisphere mugs. I think I wanted to share this with you because we're in a state of rebuilding. I wanted to get your take on maybe some recommendations for a business that has fallen that's trying to get back up. Because what I'm seeing is when your business closes, I think people kind of almost, not intentionally, but they kind of turn their back on you like that. There's no hope in this business. But what do you recommend maybe for businesses trying to rebound and come back up?
Yeah. So you and Dexter are really good at taking advantage of the resources that are available.
Yeah.
And so I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody. There are so many resources that are available for the business community, and so many businesses don't even know that they exist. So a lot of times I'll have consultations with the business, and they're like, I really need help with marketing, or I'm really having, problems finding funding options. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to direct you here. And they're like, I didn't even know that place existed. And so it's hard for us to be able to educate businesses on all of these different opportunities that are available to them. You guys are really good at taking advantage of them, i.e. doing business with giants.
Yes.
But a lot of other businesses don't. So I would highly encourage them to reach out to the resources. Small Business Development Center would probably be their first thought in their mind. And then, so of course they have all of their resources, and then they can kind of branch out into, to figuring out what the others are. But I think that's a really big thing, is sometimes the businesses feel like, I'm down and out, and there's no way for me to, this is it. I can't get any more help beyond this. And understanding that there are so many resources here, all of which pretty much are free of charge, pretty much all nonprofits. So our stake, and BBB is also a nonprofit, our stake is not in getting your money. Our stake is in providing you resources, not just to, and I say this about all of the business resource partners here at the Innovation Center too. The stake is in the businesses, because if businesses in our community do well, our economy does well, we all do well. So it's so important. But also rely on the people in your life, the positive people in your life, because sometimes, just like you said, some people tend to kind of fall away. And it's a crappy kind of thing to have to go to, and a crappy lesson to learn, but it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. I'm going to remember who fell off when I wasn't doing well, and I'm going to remember who was still here. And you lean on those people who were still there. Right. And try and find that positivity with them, and don't focus on those that have gone. Let them, there's this board of directors that I used to sit on, Metro Ministries, and Patsy Clark, who is the director over at Metro Ministries, whenever somebody would kind of fall off, or people, that customers that they served would leave or didn't want to accept the services that were being provided, her thing was always, we will bless and release. We bless and we release them. So it's like, those people who don't want to stick around for your journey, bless and release. Let them go on their own journey, and you continue on your path.
Don't focus on that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about maybe scheduling chats like at a high school or anything like that?
So I haven't done any.
I say that because it seems so important to, as you said, get the information early on, as early as you can get it, because we complain about what our schools teach and what they don't, but to have a background understanding of the business concepts that you're kind of learning right now, if you could pass those on at an early age, at least maybe just plant the seed so that people can know, hey, if I do start a business, these are the things that are available to me.
Yeah. So I haven't done student talks in years. But we did used to have something called Ethics in Action, but it was more for like the younger kids, like the like elementary school age kids. That was a BBB program, but it went away, I don't know, maybe about 5 years ago. So that was kind of our way to kind of get in the schools and be in that space. But I haven't really done, and that's a good point, reaching out probably to the high schools or even the middle school students. We do there. So CCISD has a CTE advisory board. So the craft training, whatever. And so we are on that advisory board, newly appointed to that board, advisory committee, newly appointed probably, I don't know, maybe about a month and a half. Okay. So that is a good conversation that I should have. Is how can we get in there and kind of, help
earlier the better.
Help mentor
the more you
those
can
kids.
spread it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Ms. Galan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. If anybody is inquiring information, is there a way to get a hold of you?
Yes. So bbb.org is our website. If you go to the website, you go to the leadership page, you can find all of my information there. So, but my email address, if you don't want to go, but I encourage you to go to the website. There's a lot of good stuff there. But my email address is kgalan@corpuschristi.bbb.org. And I will respond to those ASAP.
Ms. Galan, pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for making time, and hopefully you guys had something from this, and I'll see you guys soon. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Thank you.